Hello, everyone. My name is Brooks Robinson. Today I'll be breaking down some of my classroom data from a recent formative assessment that I gave to one of my physical science groups. I've been teaching high school for about 7 years now, and the data is not new to me. But throughout this class and the help of Dr. Barton over at Georgia Southern University, I've been digging deeper into our data as of recent, learning more about data analysis tools and other implementations that we can use in our classroom. And I think it's done us very, very well to help us grow in these areas. And hope to help you grow a little bit today too by showing you a little bit about what we're doing right now. A little bit about my class information. I've taught physical science since I first started teaching high school back in 2019, but recently I've taken on the role of honors physical science teacher now that we've had a few people leave the building for other roles. It's been a new challenge. The kids have been really, really great. I've been fortunate to have two groups from the fall and the spring that have been very on the ball, very hardworking, and it's kind of helped me regain some of my love for teaching as well, just because they have been such a good group. It is a mix of ninth and 11th grade students. We're kind of in flux with the way that we introduce science classes right now from the honors to regular levels. Regular education students receive environmental science as their ninth grade course, while the honors kids will go directly into physical science, whereas they would have taken it as 11th graders if they were on the regular course. Some kids missed out on this. Maybe they got to honors a little bit later, maybe 10th grade, where everybody takes biology, honors, and regular in 10th grade. But regardless, I have about four 11th graders in there with us right now. The rest of them are primarily ninth graders. Right now, we just finished up talking about force and motion. I always love talking about Newton's laws and how they relate to the physical world around us, but it's not always the easiest thing to impart on high school kids, as you'll see from our data here in just a minute. We recently switched over to a new assessment software. For the longest time, we were using USA Test Prep, which then evolved into Progress Learning, which there was a little bit of flux there too, because not everything was translating from what we had already made. Any teacher knows that starting from scratch on any assessments and questions, anything that you have to do to put a test together can be troublesome. But luckily, we were able to salvage a lot of the things that we had been doing previously and add to them with the new software. But now that we've gotten into pair assessment, we've kind of had to reinvent the wheel all over again. But I believe it's for the better. A lot of teachers had pushback when we first started pair assessment, but now as I've started to dive into all the tools and different ways that we can break down the data, I think it's going to be very, very beneficial for us moving forward using this software. One of my favorite things about PAIR that I've seen when giving any kind of formative or summative assessment this year is just the layout of how it distributes the data immediately once you open the test. As you can see here, we've got the average score of our students over to the left with a complete question breakdown going from left to right on our bar graph here with a little line graph showing some trends and where we had our strong and weak points. I usually try to keep my quizzes short, no more than 15 questions at a time, just a regular formative assessment. I don't want to try to pile onto them too much or even put in fluff with things that may not be as emphasized in the texts. But I really do try to stick to not the basics, but the things that I believe they need more of. And the software here just does a really, really good job of showing us where they're strong and where they need some improvement in. Getting back to pair assessment again, there's been a lot of pushback, as I mentioned earlier, but I think our administrative team has done a great job of assessing the needs of our teachers and just seeing the best way that they can access their data and actually implement changes into their classroom where they see fit. As you can see from this Fisk quote here, I think this relates directly to how we're viewing this breakdown and how we're viewing this change, because I do think that PAIR is going to be around for a while in our classrooms, and I think it will be very, very beneficial moving forward to how we adjust our curriculum. A little bit more about these questions here. We have some commonly missed questions. As you probably noticed from the previous slide, question number 14 was drastically missed across all my students. I think we had a 33% hit rate here. And it's not surprising because this is an area that we've struggled with both in regular and honors portions about the idea of gravity and how gravity actually pulls on every object equally and the acceleration due to gravity towards the Earth's crust. Here we just have a watermelon example. We could have dropped anything from a tall building, but we just decided to use a watermelon here. A lot of kids have problem noticing the difference between velocity and acceleration. So I think a lot of them, when they saw that constant velocity, they may have been thinking on the terms of acceleration, which still would have been incorrect. But just the idea of gravity and teaching gravity is something that's always been challenging for us. But clearly, we need a little bit more work here, and I plan to. I got a few tricks in the bag. I may have a few things that we really try to hit this harder next year and next semester to try to get through to them on this. Another question that was missed. Ooh, let me go back here. Another question that was missed quite often, not as much, but about 63% hit rate here, was just over Newton's laws. Again, anytime you have a bulleted list, 1, 2, 3, however many it is, kids have a hard time compartmentalizing a lot of those different trends and a lot of differences between them. Even though Newton's laws, this is something they've been exposed to before, there should have been some prior knowledge. So I'm not too concerned because, again, it was very close to having a 70% hit rate. So if we can shore that up just a little bit, hopefully we'll have a little bit more understanding moving forward, because these laws, these Newtonian laws, are very, very important for what we will be doing the rest of the semester when it comes to force and applied objects over time. This quote from Bernhardt here, I think it relates directly to this, in that we immediately want to try to find solutions to problems, even though they might not be clear solutions right off the bat. But we as teachers, we're problem solvers. We want to try to get ahead of it as much as we can and try to find ways to bridge the gap in instruction. And this is just another way that we're going to try to bridge the gap and help drive our students towards more success in the future. One of the things I love about PAIR as well is that they give you domain and standard breakdowns for just how well students scored in each of these areas, which again, on standardized testing, even though physical science is not a tested subject in Georgia anymore, it gives us a lot of insight into which standards and domains we need to emphasize more, especially when the state sends down those lovely pie charts that show us kind of how the test is sliced up when they do take their EOC. This quiz had 2 prevalent standards, both in the area of force and motion. Standard SPS 8B is directly related to Newton's laws. And even though I wax poetically about how difficult Newton's laws can be for students, they all scored very well across the board here, about an 83.33 repeating. You know how the repeats work. But still very, very reassuring here to see that most of the other Newtonian questions they were posed, they handled with no problems. The one that I was concerned with, and again, there's only 3 questions that pertain to gravity and how acceleration pertains to gravity, but as you can see, that is one of our weaker areas here with about a 65.56 hit rate. Again, just more of the planning on my end, trying to make sure that we shore up those weak spots and making me do a little bit better job of explaining gravity and how acceleration relates directly to that as well. This quote from Barnhart here about comparing results and different measures. Again, anything that we can get our hands on, anything that we can tangibly measure and just see how students are succeeding or where they're falling short, is just another big tool that we can put into our toolbox. And as I start to dig through this data more and more and use the PAIR assessment software, there's such a variety of different implementations and different ways to break down the data. Let me just show you a couple more here. This is our student score distribution. It breaks it down on 3 categories to the left, as you can see: proficient, basic, and below basic. This was extremely, extremely positive, overperforming here from the proficient category. You're going to have some outlier data from time to time here. I do have one student that has been struggling mightily with us. She does have some documentation. She is legally deaf. So we've been having some conversations. I've been helping her a little bit along the way. It has been challenging for her, but I think she's ready to accept the challenge. I'm not the one thing teachers we never want to do is give up on a kid. And if she's willing to apply herself, I'm willing to go the extra mile for her too. But just with that outlier data, again, it brings down the average a bit. But as you can see over here on our bar graphs, most of our student score distribution was in the higher range, with it kind of peaking towards 14, 15 here, which is what we want to see. So again, very, very positive trends, all looking in the right direction. And even though I've only been teaching one class this semester, it's my only honors physical science class this semester, I have 2 other biology sections that I teach during the day that are tested subjects and require a lot of my time. But I did have a physical science group from last semester that I can compare historical data with you. As you can see, they performed a little bit higher, 85% to this class's 80%. There weren't any outliers here that really drove the scores down, as I mentioned, with that one student that was having issues. But all of the other standard performances and pie chart breakdowns kind of say the same thing. Most of them were very proficient. There was a few that were basic, around the 25% mark here. And when it came to standard performance, it's almost carbon copy here, right? They were both in the passing range, but that standard of SPS 8C related to gravity, they were very, very close to falling into the 60s here, which is where our current class kind of hit their mark. Comparing both semesters for us, there's so many different factors that go into why these datas may be close, or even why some of our students missed the marks on certain things. In the first semester, we lost an entire day of instructional uh, time due to hurricanes. I believe it was Hurricane Helene that put us out for a week and a half. That was after this, but it was forgetting the name of the other hurricane, but it was one that dropped a lot of rain on us and kept us out for an entire week as well. That was right when we really started this stuff, so that could have definitely played a factor in this. For our class this semester, the winter storm that came through a couple weeks ago, we were right in the middle of this stuff, and it kind of really put a gap wedge between where we were and where we picked back up. There may have been some things lost along the way, some things lost in translation. So there's some things that are out of our control that could have influenced this data as well. But this last quote I have here from Fisk, talking about how data is useful, we do have to keep in mind that every student is different, right? They learn different, they behave different, they all come from different backgrounds and experiences. So what may be simple for one child may not be so simple for the other. And just trying to bridge that gap of instruction and helping them to grow and change and just be the best students and people that we can make them to be. That's really why we get into this business. And that's why I keep getting out of bed every morning and keep doing what I do. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a blast for me. I hope to continue my journey in data and crunching the numbers and just keep trying to be the best teacher that I can while I am in this profession. Thank you all.